Bala inna rabbahu kana bihi basira. Yes, why not? His Lord was fully watching over him. This is an immediate comment of rejection of their notion expressed above. The fact of the matter is that their Lord is watching over them. When this is a fact, then how is it even thinkable that He will not call them to His presence? This would not have been against His power, wisdom, justice, and mercy. At various places in the Qur'an, this watching over by the Almighty of His creatures has been presented as an argument in favor of the Day of Judgment. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالشَّفَقِ وَاللَّيْلِ وَمَا وَسَقَ وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا اتَّسَقَ لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. Therefore, this is not so. I swear by the glow of the sunset, and the night and the objects it envelops, and the moon when it grows full, that you shall certainly ascend gradually. Here at the end, three things mentioned in the form of oaths are presented as evidence to substantiate the premise mentioned earlier in verse 6, which is, O man, you are being dragged relentlessly towards your Lord and are going to meet Him. The muqsam alayh, or complement of oath of these oaths, is verse 19, and which is, you shall certainly ascend gradually. This, in other words, means that it is certain for every person to meet his Lord. However, this will be done gradually. The reason for this is that in this universe, it is the unalterable practice of God that everything here reaches its culmination in a gradual manner. While keeping in view this summary, let us analyze the individual parts of the discourse. In the verse فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالشَّفَقِ, the particle of negation law is mentioned in much the same way as it is in the first verse of Surah Qiyamah, thus, لَا أُقْسِمُ بِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, as well as in many other oaths. I have explained many a time that this particle is neither superfluous nor is it meant to refute the oath. It is in fact meant to refute in advance a false claim of the addressees which is intended to be negated by the oath itself. The efficacy in this style is that the speaker does not even wait to refute the false claim of his addressees by first presenting an argument and then refuting it. He, on the contrary, begins his speech with a refutation. This is a very natural style and is found in all well-known languages of the world. First, an oath is sworn by the glow of the sunset, and then by the night and what it envelops. It is this reddish glow which becomes a prelude to the night. As long as it stays, evening remains. It then gradually fades away and night envelops the world. In the expression وَمَا وَسَقَ, or and the objects it envelops, an oath is sworn by things which the night envelops. Lexicographers explain it by saying مَا جَمَعَ وَمَا ضَمَّ, or things which the night gathers in it. Generally, our exegetes have regarded this to refer to animals because they take refuge in the night for taking rest. Some others have regarded it to refer to rivers, mountains, and trees, since the night enshrouds them. The question arises, however, of the relationship of these things with the muqsam alayh, because oaths are sworn to substantiate what is mentioned as the muqsam alayh. For this reason, to me, this refers to the stars which appear at night and which embellish the night. In the first place, stars are specifically related to nightfall, and as such the expression وَمَا وَسَقَ is a very apt description of them. Secondly, the Qur'an at various places has presented their appearing and setting, coming and going, kneeling and prostrating, to bear evidence to the fact that they are in subjugation to the Almighty. They appear at His behest, then they gradually rise on a prescribed path, and then gradually start to disappear until they turn towards their Creator. It is at the command of this Creator that they appear. In other words, in them is a clear evidence of the tremendous grasp of the law of God mentioned in the verse Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadha, or O man, you also are being dragged relentlessly towards your Lord. The verse wal qamari izat tasaq, or and the moon when it grows full, is a mention of the specific after the general. The words wama wasaq encompass the stars and all heavenly bodies, whether moving or stationary. Here in this verse, one specific heavenly body, the moon, is selected as their outstanding representative, and its waxing and waning is emphatically presented for a certain reason. As per this reason, no other thing highlights what is stated in verse 6 and 19 to the extent the moon does. Consequently, in Surah Yasin, the Qur'an has specifically underscored this aspect of the moon thus: وَالْقَمَرَ قَدَّرْنَاهُ مَنَازِلَ حَتَّى عَادَ كَالْعُرْجُونِ الْقَدِيمِ, or we have ordained phases for the moon, passing through which it ultimately appears like a withered twig of a date palm. Surah number 36, verse 39. The expression is that tasaq means when the moon grows into a full moon. Attention is focused on its gradual progress. It does not dare deviate from its prescribed cycle, and once it reaches its zenith, it does not have the authority to remain there. It has to once again gradually begin its downward journey, and it cannot escape doing so. The expression لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا أَنْ طَبَقٍ, or you shall certainly ascend gradually, is the muqsamalay, or the complement of oath. The implication is that just as all these things are governed by a divine law and traveling towards God, similarly, man too, after passing through various phases, is moving inescapably towards the Almighty. It is neither possible that he remains where he is, nor possible that he goes to some other destination. His journey may be gradual, which is a practice of God found in all phenomena of nature, but he is sure to reach this destination. It is thus only befitting for him to not make haste nor deny the hereafter on the basis that he is not given a glimpse of it at his demand. فَمَا لَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. So what has come over them that they are not professing faith? This is an expression of wonder at their state. They must have really lost their senses if after all these blatant signs they are not professing faith in the hereafter and in reward and punishment. وَإِذَا قُرِئَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقُرْآنُ لَا يَسْجُدُونَ. And when the Qur'an is recited before them, they do not fall down in prostration. The implication of this verse is, when the Qur'an is informing them of this great fact, it was only befitting for them to have fallen down in prostration before the Almighty whenever it would be recited to them. This would have reflected their gratitude of acknowledging the greatness of the Qur'an and of the great news it was giving them. On the contrary, their attitude is the direct opposite. They are arrogantly denying it. Here, worth considering the fact is the tradition of the Arabs and the Egyptians. When they wanted to acknowledge the greatness and veracity of someone's discourse, they would bow down in prostration as soon as they would observe it or listen to it. The magicians whom the Pharaoh had gathered to contest Moses ﷺ had acknowledged the veracity of his message and the grandness of his miracles in a similar manner. Famous contemporary poets of the Prophet's times in Arabia, while acknowledging a couplet of the eminent Arab poet Labid, bowed down in prostration before him, and it was on this basis that his poetical composition was hung in the Baytullah and that he became to be regarded as the king of poets of those times. Obviously, the Qur'an is way ahead in its veracity and literary efficacy than all these things. However, people who were unaware of its value and worth, instead of prostrating before it, showed ignorance and made fun of it. بَلِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا يُكَذِّبُونَ. In fact, those who have disbelieved are denying. This is a portrayal of the practical state of affairs. The disbelievers were rejecting the Qur'an, what to speak of prostrating before it. They contended that it has been fabricated by the person who is presenting it, and he in fact wants to overawe them by intimidating them about the hereafter. Wallahu a'lamu bima yu'un. And God knows full well what they are accumulating. The implication is that the Almighty knows fully well the pebbles they are accumulating after rejecting this pearl. The immediate gains of this world would have led them to this attitude. Alas, the reality of whatever they are accumulating is not known to them. Only the Almighty is aware of it. It is only on the day when what they have accumulated will come before them that they will realize what they threw away and what they gathered. The generality found in the words bima yu'un includes the wealth they have gathered as well as their deeds and the consequences of these deeds which will necessarily come before them. However, their real awareness will come to them in the hereafter and not in this world. فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونٍ. So give them glad tidings of a painful torment. For those, however, who accepted faith and did righteous deeds, there is eternal reward. The implication is that if these people, being caught in the love of this world, do not have the courage to adopt the path prescribed to them by the Qur'an, then the Prophet should give them glad tidings of a painful doom, a fate they deserve because of their misdeeds. In other words, if they are not ready to hear the good news of salvation, then the Prophet should announce to them the good news of torment. Only those people will be saved from this torment who profess faith and do righteous deeds, which is the very message towards which the Qur'an is calling them. For such people indeed there shall be eternal reward. With the grace of God, this brings us to the end of this surah's tafsir. As-sayyu minni wal itmamu min Allah wa biyadihi al-fadl kulluhu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Or, I can only strive for a task, and it is up to the Almighty to bring it to completion, and all blessings are in His hands, and He has power over all things. Rahmanabad, 10th September 1979 AD, 17th Shawwal, 1399 AH.